What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone is healthy and well. All my new viewers joining the family, welcome. Thank you so much for joining a brother to watch. There is a million creators, but you chose me. Today, let's jump right into this highly recommended video. This Canadian move will cost America billions. Oh my gosh, not millions, but billions. And then shout out to the Infographics show. We have checked out multiple videos from their channel. Very educational, should I say. Very entertaining. Let's jump right into it. Highly recommended. We are 3 months late, by the way. 3 months late? Maybe I heard of this, though.
Canada has had enough, and
Wait a minute.
Canada has had enough, and it's about to strike back at America. Recently, relations between the two nations have been rocky, to say the least. The U.S. government has threatened their once friendly northern neighbors with everything from tariffs to outright annexation. But Canada has a little something up its sleeve, something the U.S. may not have seen coming. On today's episode of the Infographics Show, we'll dive into Canada's bold new plan to make the United States pay. In early 2025, the U.S. threatened Canada with a 25% tariff on all imports, a move that had everyone holding their breath. After a few delays and political back and forth, the tariffs finally went into effect on March 4th. But why did the U.S. administration impose tariffs on Canada in the first place? Well, according to the U.S. president, he believes Canada has not been doing its part in stopping the flow of undocumented migrants and fentanyl into the U.S. from its northern border. However, in 2024, only 43 pounds of fentanyl were seized coming in from Canada, while in comparison, 21,000 pounds of fentanyl were seized at the border with Mexico. This move puzzled many experts. They struggled to understand why a border collie's weight in fentanyl crossing the border over the course of a year was being treated as such a major threat, especially given the drug's already massive presence within the U.S. Even more puzzling, the trade deal the president keeps calling unfair, claiming the U.S. is subsidizing Canada by $200 billion a year, is actually the deal he signed himself during his first term back in October 2018. To soften the blow, the president issued an executive order allowing...
he signed no deal. I did not know he signed no deal for that. Bro, what?
Back in October 2018. To soften the blow, the president issued an executive order allowing Canadian imports that comply with the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, to temporarily dodge the tariffs. But there is a catch. The reprieve only lasted until April 2nd. After that, the tariffs would come roaring back. But that exemption doesn't cover most Canadian goods. In fact, 62% of other imports are still hit by the new tariffs. There is some relief for key sectors, though: energy and potash, two huge segments of Canadian trade. Canada is actually the largest energy exporter to the U.S., and those sectors will face a reduced tariff of just 10%. Economists point out that the U.S. isn't subsidizing Canada, but rather it has a trade deficit with the country, mostly relating to energy exports. And that deficit isn't $200 billion, it's $63.3 billion, a number that not only disappears but actually becomes a trade surplus for the U.S. if energy imports are discounted. However, in order to negotiate something better with their neighbors to the north, the U.S. went ahead with the 25% tariffs, which have hit three industries particularly hard: energy, lumber, and automobiles. Though the U.S. produces a lot of oil, in fact, most of any country in the world, many of its refineries need heavy crude oil to operate, 60% of which is imported from Canada, where it lies in abundance. Of course, the refineries could be restructured to not rely on crude oil, but that would take many years and cost billions and billions of dollars. And crude oil isn't the only Canadian energy import the U.S. relies on. The USA imports almost all of its natural gas and 85% of its electrical energy from Canada.
I did not know that. So basically all of our electricity, our power, comes from Canada. Wait, crazy to think like our electricity, our power is coming from Canada. Like our major cities and stuff that are always lit up and stuff, that is literally coming from Canada. Oh my gosh. It's like the U.S. can't do nothing for themselves. Like, why create such issues with somebody we know is not really a burden to us? We seen the percentages of the fentanyl and this and that, and coming across the border, the illegal immigrants. It wasn't a lot compared to Mexico. Canada was like basically nothing. They still look like saints. So I don't really understand, man. It was more so about just conquering. I'm seeing how much we really need Canada. Like, we're literally getting majority of everything we have from Canada. But we need oil. What about when Canada completely shuts us off? I know Canada would never do that because you guys are thinking smart, not naive, like how they do over here. So you guys will continue the business just from a distance. We won't really be so much brothers, we're more so like the cousins on the opposite family side. Facts. We're more so like cousins, and we come from two different sides of the family. And they don't like each other. Well, I love you guys, but that's how it is now. That bond is no longer there. So what about when Canada, I'm not trying to manifest it, but what they completely shut us off? Hey, we ain't getting no oil from y'all. We ain't getting electricity from y'all. Then what? We got to go run to another country, and they're going to probably tax us. They're going to rip us off because you need us. They're going to rip us off. Unless we trade over our military support or somehow. You know how the U.S. do. It just wouldn't go well, man. It wouldn't.
U.S. imports almost half of its and 85% of its electrical energy from Canada.
Man.
The U.S. imports almost half of its lumber from Canada, amounting to $28 billion worth in 2021. Since 94% of U.S. housing is built with lumber, that creates a big problem.
94? Bro, this is crazy. These percentages are high. This is wicked. We're not talking about 30%, 40%. Maybe you could work with something. Maybe you could go find somebody else. When these percentages start exceeding the 60s, 70s, guys, we need you. We need Canada. We need Canada. Why couldn't he just be happy? We should just be happy with what Canada's offering us,
Problem for potential homeowners in a country where housing is already becoming unaffordable for many. The U.S. construction industry has estimated that tariffs on Canadian lumber will increase the cost of the average house by $9,000. Once again, even if the U.S. could theoretically produce all its required lumber domestically, something a recent analysis by research company Fast Markets says will take at least a decade, it would probably be impossible without tearing down a significant section of protected U.S. forests. However, the industry group that's been hit the hardest and maybe the most vocal about suffering tariffs on Canada is U.S. automakers. The Canadian and U.S. auto industries have become so enmeshed they essentially function as one big manufacturing chain. Automakers in Detroit, Michigan, and plants in neighboring Windsor, Ontario, send car parts and outsource manufacturing processes to one another all the time. U.S. automakers rely on Canada so heavily that 1.24 million vehicles are imported into the U.S. from the north, making Canada fourth among countries the U.S. imports vehicles from, behind Mexico, Japan, and South Korea. Former Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called the
only way I could see, somebody doing something like this and going full through with it, crazy, just waking up and just, I got this on my mind. There had to be something going on behind the doors, something behind closed scenes that nobody else knew about. And then when that time came, it was let's push them to the side, or let's try to do this, and because ain't no way you just wake up in a bad mood and say, I want to slap tariffs on Canada. You know what I'm saying? It had to be something in the making, which we all probably knew. It had to be something going on in the making, but man, I'm noticing a lot now, guys, and it's really affecting me. It's affecting people around the world. People I know that work jobs. It's to the point, out here in the U.S., people are literally managing their last dollars. They're like, I'm not going to get a haircut. Or I'm not going to I'm not going to go to the bar. I'm not going to eat out. I might not eat today. People are literally rationing what they have and making decisions that's I usually get a haircut every 2-3 weeks. Now I don't. I get my haircuts from my father, so I don't have to pay, But it's even he's telling me stuff he's noticing a change, and the rates people are coming to, usually you booked every 30 minutes. Now it's wow, I got a little break. The days are moving slower, realizing people are managing the dollar, especially the holidays around. They're taxing us even more purposely because they know we're still going to have to go Christmas shopping regardless. So why not tax us? They literally said this to our faces. People are like, I'm not going to get a haircut. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. That's how it is during the holidays. When you think, the numbers would jump. People going out the state, the country, they going here for Christmas. They going to see they wife or they boyfriend or girlfriend or their husband's family for the first time on Christmas dinner, this, that, Thanksgiving, stuff like that. And it's just not. People not getting no hours. People not getting paid the same. People getting laid off. people unemployed right now. They unemployed. They're not unemployed. They are literally unemployed is like you're still getting money at least. You know, weekly check. They're not getting that. It's just you have no job. You have no money. There's no unemployment. I've been telling y'all a lot of stuff I've been seeing change, and it's like, wow. It's like, wow. Even watching YouTube videos, I noticed like the number of ads kind of fluctuate. Excuse me, it was a tongue twister right there. They've been fluctuating. Before, maybe on a video, I get slapped with about 4 or 5 ads. Now it's like 1 or 2 ads. Like, where the advertisements at, you know? There's not too many advertisers coming from Canada now to the U.S. because not too many people are buying stuff from us. So therefore, that lowers that. Like, everybody gets affected, guys. This is how it is, you know? And I've been called this. I already knew that it gonna happen, you know? And it's like, I've been noticing. That's why I'm sitting here going on the rant, because I've been noticing the changes, guys. Stuff is changing fast. Changing fast, man.
Tariffs a dumb thing to do. While the U.S. admits among countries the U.S. imports vehicles from, behind Mexico, Japan, and South Korea. Former Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called the tariffs a dumb thing to do, while the U.S. administration has insisted that they want to maintain friendly relations with Canada throughout the process. But it seems like the feeling is one-sided. Many Canadians have turned their backs on the U.S. without even a polite Canadian sorry to ease the tension as they boycott American-made products and cancel U.S. travel plans. A New York Times analysis showed that flights from Canada to the U.S. went down by 21% after Trump's tariffs took effect. But that is not the only way Canada plans to retaliate against threats from the U.S., as you'll soon see. Because
this was 3 months ago, 21%. It's like in the 40s. It's like in the 40s now, almost 50s. It's bad. Nah. It's bad. It's bad. We have some people still deciding to travel here, but other than that, nah. Most of the people like, nah.
U.S. threats haven't just been retaliated against threats from the U.S., as you'll soon see. Because the U.S. threats haven't just been economic, they've also been territorial. There have been calls about Canada becoming the 51st U.S. state multiple times. 77% of Canadians strongly or somewhat oppose joining the U.S., so it's clear that the whole 51st state idea is mostly an American dream. Current Prime Minister Mark Carney made it very clear that Canada is not for sale and won't be for sale ever. To which the U.S. replied, never say never, so it seems that no matter what Canada says, the threats from the U.S. government are not completely off the table. So what can Canada do? Well, they're trying out one plan right now, because if you look at a map of the U.S., one very big, resource-rich part of the country is separated from the contiguous 48 states by Canada. And that place is the frozen, beautiful, massive state of Alaska. And Canada, or at least the Premier of British Columbia, David Eby, has threatened to severely hamper access to Alaska by imposing tolls on previously duty-free roads. And that's a problem because British Columbia is the province that trucks need to get through to get to Alaska.
Facts.
Now, you might be thinking, why don't they simply fly over Canada to get to Alaska or take a ship? Well, while that does work for some cargo, it doesn't work for all. Supplies and other materials that need to get to Alaska immediately, or some that are considered high value, are almost always delivered by trucks. According to 49th Freight, when cargo needs to get from the contiguous U.S. to Alaska quickly, say in 7 to 10 days from as far as Dallas, Texas, and it requires over 40-foot equipment or can't be transferred mid-transit, trucking is the best option. Commercial trucks travel from Dawson Creek, the town in British Columbia, not the 90s teen soap, all the way up to Fairbanks, Alaska, a distance of about 1,400 miles on the Alaska Highway. Thanks to previously friendly relations between Canada and Alaska, truck traffic generally travels through the province duty-free. Though the majority of cargo to Alaska is shipped, that still leaves 27% of imported and exported commodities to and from Alaska transported by truck, according to Royal Alaskan Movers. That is $596 million worth of goods exported from Alaska to Canada and $753 million of goods exported from Canada to Alaska. It's enough to spook a lot of people in Alaska who rely on cargo shipments.
Yeah.
The executive director of the Alaska Trucking Association, Jamie Benson, said she is deeply concerned about the proposal to either block or impose duties on products going through Canada to Alaska. She further elaborated that such measures will significantly increase transportation costs, disrupt supply chains, and raise prices for essential goods that Alaskans rely on. British Columbia isn't the only Canadian province threatening the U.S. either. Yukon Premier Ranch Pillay, whose province butts up against Alaska, said that governmental liquor stores in his province will stop importing from American companies. In addition to that, U.S. companies that may have previously had access to Yukon governmental contracts will now be restricted. Pillay made it clear that his problem is not with the people of Alaska, but rather with the U.S. government's actions and threats. To our friends and family in Alaska, he states, "Our lives and economies are interconnected. Please know these measures are not directed at you, but we must do what we can to stand up for our country, our sovereignty, and our way of life." In addition, Pillay might be thinking about getting in on the toll game himself. The premier said that he's heard from plenty of his constituents that they would be interested in imposing tolls on U.S. commercial traffic bound for Alaska. Pillay made it clear that instituting tolls would take some time, as the province would need to construct toll stations and staff them. However, he pointed out that that wouldn't be too difficult to process, as there are already way stations that trucks are required to pull into on the way to Alaska through Canada. So toll booths could easily be added to those areas. In addition, it's not like the Yukon is crisscrossed by hundreds of highways. There is one major highway that goes through to Alaska, nicknamed Alaskan, Alaska, Canada. As for the Premier of British Columbia, EB, disrupting traffic to Alaska isn't the only plan that he has in mind. He's already directed his own provincial government to stop buying American products where alternatives exist. He's asked liquor stores in his area to stop selling alcohol from Republican-led states, which includes Alaska. And Alaska, it's conflicted. Some politicians, like Alaskan Senator Dan Sullivan, have fired back with threats of their own. He warned that if Canada restricts commercial trucking from the contiguous U.S. to Alaska, he could push Congress or the president to pass legislation or issue an executive order targeting U.S. cruise ship stops in Canada. See, according to current regulations, cruise ships that go up to Alaska must make a mandatory stop in Canada, something that local economies on the coast partly rely on for tourism and shipping income. Sullivan warned Canada that tolls on trucks represent a bit of a dangerous game, and the effect of exempting cruise ships from stops in Canada could cost the latter billions.
Oh, yes.
As he states, "We're going to work hard on having our cruise ships bypass your ports, and that'll help our economy tremendously. It'll help our tourism industry tremendously, and it'll really hurt their tourism." On the other hand, the Alaskan House of Representatives took a more diplomatic approach. In late March 2025, they passed House Joint Resolution 11, formally recognizing Canada's sovereignty and right to self-determination, a clear counter to the U.S. administration's rhetoric. The resolution also urged both federal governments to resolve the tariff dispute quickly. Specifically, they said the Alaska State Legislature opposes restrictive trade measures or tolls that would harm the unique relationship between Canada and Alaska or negatively affect our integrated economies. Both Republicans and Democrats in the House approved the measure. Even the Republican House Majority Leader, Chuck Kopp, said they ask both countries to work together amicably to resolve the tariff situation in a way that shows the respect for territorial integrity and sovereignty of both nations. In addition, all of these threats from the premiers of the provinces don't have the full backing of their constituents. In fact, many towns situated along the Alaskan Highway rely not only on U.S. commercial trucking, but U.S. tourism along the road to survive.
Yep.
The road trip to Alaska is a major bucket list for many. Local business owners and mayors situated along the route fear that escalating tensions, tariffs, and back-and-forth threats will decrease their customer base. Towns like Fort Nelson, located in British Columbia, which are already facing economic depression, are worried about their future.
I heard Fort Nelson is a ghost town right now, boy. I said, oh my gosh. Some people told me they live over there and it's like a ghost town. They said they never felt so free before. The way like they can move around in their own area. Hey, it's no tourists here. No tourists here today. Oh, it's nothing but locals. Things are changing drastically, and I don't think anything will ever go back to normal after this. You can't try to stab your back in a friend and then assume y'all finna be side by side to the day I die. No, it's just not gonna go down like that no more. They could be give you that side eye, like, you know.
In British Columbia, which are already facing economic depression, are worried about their future. Northern Rockies Regional Municipality Mayor Rob Fraser, whose district includes Fort Nelson, stated every single foreign dollar that comes in here is important to us. Every flat tire, every sandwich, every cup of coffee. Brian Stanley, the owner of Triple G Hideaway RV Park and Restaurant, echoed similar sentiments, saying American tourists are a huge part of keeping this place going.
Yeah.
Local Super 8 motel owner Murray Abbs said it's a significant percentage traveling to and from Alaska. Not only commercial truck drivers, but also tourists and even military members on their way to and from Alaskan military stations. It seems Premier Eby has heard some of these concerns. Bill 7, known as the Economic Stabilization Tariff Response Act, was introduced for passage in Canada, but EB made it clear that the bill was simply proposed to give the province the option of applying tolls to U.S. commercial traffic. Others are concerned at how broad the language in Bill 7 is, and if it could possibly violate an international treaty. According to some critics, Bill 7 isn't too specific about whether it would enact tolls on just commercial traffic, meaning that private tourism could also be affected. This would create much bigger issues, as while only about 10,000 commercial trucks pass through BC on their way to Alaska every year, many more tourists do. While there are no specific numbers for road trip visitors, a total of 97,200 annual visitors to Alaska arrived by highway or ferry in 2018 alone. Another important geopolitical issue may be the violation of a 1977 treaty governing the use of the Alaskan Highway. The document very clearly says that any charges applied to U.S. travelers on the highway must also be applied to Canadian travelers. The treaty was created partly because the highway itself was built by the U.S. before being handed over to Canadian administration. However, Premier Eby doesn't seem too concerned about this, as he has said since the U.S. doesn't seem to respect treaties, why should British Columbia adhere to them? In other words, an escalation of the tariff war between the two countries seems like it would benefit almost no one and harm most of the people involved. Now go check out Tariff that destroyed the American economy.
See, and then when you get to breaking rules, acting belligerent, not caring, other people going to do the same back. And that's how you get frustrated. This is how you can't resolve nothing, you know? You just further the issues, man, the beef. We beefing for no reason, realistically. But I guess everybody else out there has their own opinions towards this. Please feel free to share your honest thoughts and opinions, guys, in the comments down below. This was from 3 months ago, so I'm actually aware of, like, I am currently, what is the date? It is Monday, November 17th. I am currently up to date, you know, always have been with what Mark Carney is doing for Canada, all the projects and different type of things going on. You know, he's giving people more jobs and stuff. Crazy how Canada got more projects and stuff going on and more people getting jobs and stuff. And the U.S. is literally, we got people losing jobs and this and that, and with less projects, we can't finish them. It's crazy how, like, everything just turned on us. It's ridiculous, guys. Everyone, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, turn all post notifications on. Please share your honest thoughts and opinions. Feel free to check out my Twitch and other channels, guys. Stay safe.